You are listening to Know You're Crazy. My name is Susan Denee. We all have crazy. What separates us is how we choose to deal with it. I'm going to be delivering engaging and actionable tools to own your crazy, treat your crazy, and turn it into your own superpower. I hope that you walk away from this show feeling the power and strength within you. And never forget to enjoy your journey because you are worth it. Hey everyone, welcome to the Know You're Crazy show. My name is Susan Denee, and you are listening to Emotional Recovery in the Raw. Today's show, we are going to be talking about the relationship reset. I don't recall if I've done shows in the past of this valuable catch-all that benefits a relationship. It doesn't just have to be intimate relationships either. It can be friendships. It can be relationships with your children. Wouldn't you agree that sometimes we just need a reset? Now, I'm not talking about let's tap out for the moment and do a redo. A redo is going to be different than a reset. A redo is going to be, okay, we got in this ugly, dark argument. We were both tired. We had been working all day. You had something going on big in your life. I had something going on in big in my life. And then we tried talking about this sensitive topic and we blew up. Can we just do a redo? Like, can we just forgive one another and say, hey, let's give each other a bunch of grace and restart? That's a redo. I'm talking about a reset. A reset is a little bit different. A relationship reset is going to focus around the meaning, the words. Where have we gotten off track within the relationship? More of a longer term impact. Most relationships that need a reset are going to be relationships that have been going on for a while. Long-term relationships, this is why I said it doesn't always need to mean intimate relationships. Often it will, because we are living under the roof with this individual most of the time. And those relationships tend to grate on us and really teach us the most about who we are than any other relationship. Professional relationships can do the same. Just don't really know if you're going to feel like going into your boss and being like, hey, I need a relationship reset with you. There might be an approach you could make, right? I think you're probably getting my drift. Once again, I am passionate about the relationships in our lives. How can we make them better? How can we show up with joy and fulfillment and support and encouragement without making it all about us? All about us. Am I being selfish and self-centered to the core? Am I unable to see beyond my own wants, needs, and desires for fear of something's not going to be met, that I'm holding you accountable all the time for how I'm supposed to feel? Is that what's going on? Sometimes we can get off track with that. Okay, how did I get here today? Why is this topic today passionate to me? As always, when I work with others, there are just some really inspirational sessions that I will have, either when I'm working with somebody in recovery or if I'm working with somebody on the coaching side. And so I got inspired this last week by watching a couple just demonstrate once again the integrity of their relationship to suit up and show up and do what's necessary to stay in that ring and pull through. So the primary storytelling I'm given a little bit today is an intimate relationship. However, because I have many children and those children are getting older, and I have adult relationships and friendships, I do believe that a relationship reset can be used in all different areas of our life, not just intimacy. Having said all of that, one, if you're joining me today, thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the show. I'm going to be given some more examples of the topic that I'm sharing about. Then I'm going to provide some tools and some solutions for you. I'm a huge believer, if you haven't been watching the show very long, in finding your own personal accountability to free yourself and to continue to grow. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's between you and the universe, or you and yourself, if that's how you want to, if that's your belief system, to really come to the solution. to think that other people are going to change to better your life. It's nice when they do. It's nice when they collaborate with you in relationship. It's nice when they hear you and they see you, and they do find their own part in the relationship. That's nice. But becoming too dependent on that is really, I think, where a lot of people end up being sour-faced and unhappy in relationships because they're putting too much pressure on the other individual to fulfill them. So I am a big believer in personal accountability, finding your part, not in a doormat way, not in a, hey, everybody walk all over me, I'm always responsible for everybody's behavior, nothing like that. I'm talking more about how am I showing up in the relationship? How am I giving back? And have I been blocked? And when you become in a relationship with another person, what can happen is the relationship can take some character defects on of itself. So individual A may have some character flaws, individual B may have some character flaws. For the most part, they iron them out. But then together as a team, they're working in relation for this relationship because they have joined the relationship in order to be fulfilled, to feel joy beyond their greatest dreams. A lot of times, when we've engaged in a relationship or we've agreed to move in with somebody, hopefully it's under the guise that we're doing this to better our lives together. And I'm not saying there ain't toxic relationships. Trust me, I got a boyfriend back years ago. We lasted a month and then we had to go our separate ways. Motives were a little bit different back then. What I'm talking about are the mature couples who have made a decision to come into their life, or mature relationships, friendships, who have made a decision. They are adults. We're in this thing together as a team. Let's see what we can do. The relationship's gone off track a little bit, and we need a reset. We need a reset. So one of the first things that I want to talk about when it comes to a relationship reset is really just taking the temperature of the relationship. Let's say that 100-degree temperature relationship is super, should we make that positive or super hot? It's going fantastic. 100 degrees. We are on fire, as my husband would say. Or we're gotten a little chilly. Now we're down in the 1-degree area. I'm looking at you across the room like, I think I'm going to pack my bags and move out. But we've been together for 20 years and maybe not. But oh my God, if you move or you breathe, I'm going to lose right? So yeah, 100 degrees, we're super hot, we're doing fantastic. And now we're down to like 1%. Oh my God, what's going on? How do we get back to even the happy middle ground and then get back up to that 100-degree when we've gone chilly? How do we do that? One, you got to take the temperature. Where are you at on the barometer? Where are you at? Thermometer, barometer, thermometer. You know what I'm saying? Where are you at on it? Is your relationship together? If you kind of took the temperature, do you feel like, oh, we've gone cold? Sometimes this is where a coach works really well with individuals. I'm not going to lie, because like sometimes if one person's feeling this way, the other person may be like, nobody's home. I have no idea what you're talking about. If you're in that relationship, a third party is helpful. Coaching's helpful. It's not therapy. It's just a matter of setting those objectives out for the couple and let's see what you want to achieve, and let's take the temperature and let's keep it in a mode of neutrality, which can be somewhat challenging in the beginning as everybody irons out their part a little bit. Having said that, take the temperature. And if you look at the temperature as a couple and you're like, we've gotten kind of frigid, I don't really know what's going on. Usually some symptoms of a cold temperature is going to be somebody, like there's traits of individuals in the relationship when things aren't going great. And if you've been in a long relationship for many years, or a couple years at least, you kind of get to know each other. Like you kind of understand that when your partner is stressed out, they might retreat. Or you kind of understand when your partner's overwhelmed, maybe they cry a lot. Or you kind of understand when somebody's scared because of financial stress or maybe job pending stuff, that maybe they get mean, maybe they're short-tempered. Like you kind of get to know your partner. At least you get to know them if you're watching and witnessing. Sometimes if we're too blocked about how this person's behavior is constantly affecting us, we forget to see them for what's going on. And if you allow yourself to see your partner for what's going on, what'll happen is you'll have more consideration for where they're at. and you'll start to not take it personally when it goes there. It's like a nice detachment. If you've listened to my videos on the emotional jacket, it's that ability to not put on the emotional jacket, primarily because you're understanding where they're at and you're witnessing them. This does not, I'm not excusing inexcusable behavior or anything like that. I am simply saying you've been with somebody for a while. If you really kind of took an outside, if you're not used to doing this and you took yourself as an outside perspective looking in, you would actually identify some of their traits as far as how they are when something's not going great. And the reason I'm talking about not going great is because we're talking about if the temperature's a little frigid in the relationship and what are we going to do the reset? Okay. So when you know your partner and you're able to kind of take a step back, sometimes you can start to watch one another's traits and where they're at. After time, if one of the partners is exhibiting these particular traits that aren't benefiting the relationship, a relationship can kind of you'll feed off one another. Because after a while, it can get stressful and it can get overwhelming for the relationship to be a little frigid. So maybe one person's overwhelmed and they're crying all the time. And then the other person, as a result of watching that, is pulling back. And I don't even want to walk in the room because if I say something, they're going to lose it. Or maybe a partner is spending too much money because they've been stressed out and one partner's watching that. And so over time, if the traits go, and I'm just going to use this wording, unchecked, not communicated about, as much as maybe they need to be. It's the best way for me to put it. What'll happen is the behaviors start feeding off one another, right? And so now we're frigid. Now I'm looking at you in an accusatory way. I'm not happy. And now I'm looking at you like I'm always a disappointment to you and I'm not happy. So there's this dynamic going on, but nobody's talking about it. Sound familiar? Have you guys ever been there? I've been there. I've been there. I think it's pretty natural when you're in longer relationships with individuals to have stuff happen, to have unspoken things happen, to have hurt feelings and maybe not talk about it. Like there's different things that go on, right? So, how do we bounce back and do a relationship reset? There's always going to be clues. There's going to be clues as a couple as far as where you can start. So I'm just going to walk through a couple things that I got to work with this couple last week, because this really was fantastic. This is a fantastic couple who is really willing to go within. They look at their part, but they got full lives. You got the jobs, you got the kids. Maybe you got some, just emotional well-being being taken care of. I mean, they're a full life. They are an active participating family, lots going on, right? Lots going on. So easy to get distracted a little bit and put the relationship on the back burner every now and then. Does this sound familiar with any of my full-time working married parents out there who have gone through this? Or maybe somebody who's professionally busy all the time. And so sometimes the relationship can feel a little bit of strain, like that rubber band's been pulled a little bit too tight. Now we're starting to snap at one another. Okay. So, how did we manage to do a relationship reset? How did they manage to get there this last session? Number one, they provided space for one another to share. And like I said, if you've never used a coach before, it's kind of nice because you're setting aside time each week or every 2 weeks, whatever your schedule is, to just get quiet with one another and to kind of put everything out on the table in a way. Because the goal with coaching is to talk about, okay, this is how we performed. This is where we want to go. What are we trying to achieve, right? Like we want to get out into that future goal setting, the future creating, and just get it move on a little bit from here. But sometimes we can get stuck staring at what is. So they were a little stuck. A lot of stuff had been changing, a lot of stuff going on, whether it's vacations, family, you guys get it. It's a full life. And so we just got to have an opportunity to revisit. They got to have an opportunity to revisit. They set aside this time to really be like, okay, what's the check-in? On a scale of 1 to 10, this might be how a coaching session begins. On a scale of 1 to 10, how fulfilled are you feeling? All right, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy were you or how joyful were you this last week, right? So we got to take a temperature and there's a whole list of questions I would ask. And then you can start to kind of read the room, like everybody on the call, me, them, doesn't matter. Everybody can read the room. And you start to pick up a little bit like, oh, there's some improvement needed. But what really came out in the coaching call was to be able to break through and kind of get past where they were at to get on to the next level. Some things need to be brought up. And so there were words shared during the session that I was able to say, please define that. Please define that. And so often when we are feeling a little frigid in our relationships, we might describe something we're feeling with certain words, but we use them all the time. They're words that we use all the time. So in your relationship with one another, ask yourself, what type of words do we use all the time? I'll give you an example. My husband, years ago, when we were working through some of our stuff, he would say, what do you need from me? Now, I was put off by this because it would irritate me. I don't need nothing from nobody. You guys hear me? Yeah, it was one of those. And I wasn't used to being vulnerable in a relationship and communicating. I was used to just getting stuff done and moving on. But now I was with somebody who actually wanted to communicate. Imagine that. Yeah. And I had to learn how to be vulnerable. But what we were missing was the word need. So, in his regard, what do you need from me was helping him find some way to show up. You know, how do I show up? This is how, obviously he's noticing something with me, probably busy, straight face, some of my character traits when I just get overwhelmed or just busy, really. And he's asking me, what do you need? Well, I have a definition of need, and it's not serving. Back then, it was kind of like off putting. So I had a belief system around the word need. I had my own definition with need. In your relationship, you will be often sharing how somebody's making you feel or your experience. And this can be any relationship, but common words will be used over and over. What's interesting in communicating with another individual is ask one another, what are our definitions of the words that we're using? What are our definitions of the words that we're using? Because this isn't like pull out the dictionary or Google and Google the word need. There's meaning behind the word need for each person, depending on what they're bringing to the relationship and what their past is. Now, that might seem kind of big. It might seem like, oh my goodness, do we really need to go that far into it? No, you don't if you use common sense and just acknowledge that your definitions may be different. Last week, it was the word support. I don't feel like I had a lot of support this last week. Okay, let's talk about the word support. What does support look like for you in a relationship? What does support look like for you? Because I'm just going to, sometimes I think people, look, I'm going to just give you guys all credit for being adults. Okay. So if anybody gets butthurt over how I'm going to put this, just use your filter. Okay. Just use your filter. Okay. Because I'm going to go traditional. Now I am not, okay. Just hang with me. Just hear me all the way through because this is the best way to put it. I'm going to go very traditional roles right now. You got, in this particular scenario, you got the woman's role and you had the man role. And so, whether we agree or not agree, sometimes we are all influenced by culture and the roles that we play. Now, a lot of us can break from different traditional roles as we get older or we experience life. But that's the role, that's the description I'm going to give. So, support for a working full-time mom with children may not look the same as a full-time working husband as far as how support is. The woman on this side might need more emotional support. And we had a fantastic breakthrough. This was really great. More of a emotional support for different things. All right. Where the man on his side might be like, well, support is I go out to work, I bring home the bacon, I fix some things around the house. Okay. So his definition of support might be different than what her definition of support is. Do you see where I'm going with this? I'm just using the traditional roles because it's just the best way to describe it. So when the relationship gets frigid and somebody says, I don't feel supportive, well, if one's giving support one way, but one's expecting to receive it another way, do you see how it can get a little bit frigid over time? And it's not that something's missing. It's not that anybody did anything wrong. It's that their definitions have gone awry and we've gotten away from what are we doing here? And next, do I have a little card for this? I don't know if I do. The next one, this is a basic. If you do the emotional elevation coaching with me as a couple or as an individual, you're going to go over a session that covers appreciation and expressing appreciation to those in your life. So how does this might work? So I'm just going to take you through a little example. Once the word support gets put out on the table and we get to talk about what does support mean to us, now we get to turn the tables. Now fast forward, like you had a whole session and now we're going to be close to wrapping up the session. We're going to take a frigid relationship and we're going to try making it up to that 100-degree, maybe get it up to 50, 75. Let's see what we can do, right? Appreciation might look like, and also keep in mind, you got to define appreciation. All right. So if somebody, I'm gonna just sidetrack just a little bit. Words can be loaded. All right. Words can be loaded with beliefs. Some words more than others. Love. Would you say that's a loaded word? Love can mean a lot of different things for a lot of people. Oh, here's one for you. God. It's just God all by itself. Loaded word. It can send off sirens of religious resentment to passionate Christianity, to Buddhism, to agnostic. I mean, just the word God can spark all kinds of different stuff depending on the person receiving the word God, right? Appreciation. So I'm coming back to appreciation. Why did I go off on that? Because just make sure that appreciation isn't like a heavy topic in the relationship. Like if somebody's always, well, we're talking about definition. So if you got somebody who's always saying, I don't feel appreciated, that's a loaded word for the relationship and a definition needs applied. Does that make sense? Okay. I had to table that for a moment. I'm going to come back. Now, let's say appreciation. Nobody has it as like their thing in the relationship. It's just something that we acknowledge. Here's how this can go from a frigid relationship to up in the high temps relationship in just one session. By the time the definition of support comes out and it's acknowledged how everybody is actually showing their support, but it's been perceived a different way, now we can start to shift the waters a little bit and still have everybody feel heard and feel supported, because we're going to go into appreciation. I really thank you and appreciate the extra work you did with kiddo the other day. I'm so glad that you recognized the limits of what the child had and was able to put a pause on that. I really thank you for that, because if I would have had to receive that child after that and they would have been maxed out and tired and fatigued, I would have had a really stressful evening. So thank you. I appreciate that you did that. Same individual who didn't feel supported now sees how the other individual was working in a different way, but still trying to support, but coming at a different angle. Other party, I really appreciate everything you've done. You had a certain celebration this month and it meant a lot to you. And I just want to say, I appreciate all the years that you've put behind that. And it's meant a lot, because if we didn't have that in this home, I don't even know what we'd have. So thank you for the hard work. I appreciate that. The person who didn't feel supported needed acknowledged for a celebration that they didn't feel they got acknowledged well enough. So now we get to go back to, okay, what's the agreement in the relationship with celebration? And so now I'm going to take you into, okay, so now we've got this appreciation thing. Now we've talked about definitions. Look for the hot words in the relationship, because the hot words are the ones that really need to find the most. And this isn't about the definitions of the definition words, the words that you choose to define. Let me rephrase that. It's not about changing your partner's definition, okay? Because remember, the person you're with is coming with a lifetime of experience. They are going to feel something about a word one particular way, likely because of their life experience. So if you expect that you're going to change your partner's definition in one or two conversations, you're probably not. It's more about accepting each other for what your definitions are, so that you can then appreciate and get on to the next level. Okay? All right. So how do we continue with this relationship reset? So far, taking the temperature. Where are we at? The next thing that you've done is looked for keywords in the relationship. When the relationship's a little frigid, there's usually a common phrase or a common expression that each partner will use. And you want to pay attention to that. And then you want to get into those words a little bit and say, well, really, what's that mean for you? So when you say, for example, you don't feel supported, what does support mean to you? And then I'm going to talk about what support means to me, and let's see if we can like figure out like where we've gone awry, right? Like let's get to the definitions. After the definitions and after there might be a good conversation, the other way to reset is to get into appreciation. When you think about the person that you live with, and this could be a really, if you're like a 100 temperature relationship all the time, you probably do this on a regular basis already. How often do you express the appreciation for the people in your life? Like truly appreciate them for who they are, what they do, and how they show up for you. How often do you express that? Professionally, how often do you express your appreciation for your coworkers? And do you express it to more than one person? You know, because sometimes we can get used to the same people in our lives and always thanking them, but do we express it to the other people? So appreciation. Next, relationship reset. Sometimes what's needed. Now, I know I had a card on this one. Take a look at the agreements again. Are the agreements still working? I have worked with, and this is an easy example for me to use, and it'll make a good point. And I can use my own story if I'd like. But I have worked with many couples in recovery from alcoholism and addiction. That's kind of my, how I got into all this. And so I've coached several couples in that world. And one of the agreements that has to be talked about is how they live their recovery as individuals, but as a couple also. Because once you get sober, you realize this is really important to the relationship that we keep our sobriety, because if we don't have our sobriety, what are we going to do? Right. And so agreement about sobriety, that's just one agreement. But how do we live our sobriety? And how you live your sobriety may not be how I live mine, but is there a happy ground? Because we both know when we're not doing whatever, whether it's your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health, I'm going to say sobriety health, whatever it is, we all know that when we don't maintain over time, sometimes we can get a little bit grumpy, or maybe we get a little bit depressed, or maybe we get a little bit agitated, or what else can we do? Oh, anyway, all kinds of things. But the point is, those traits that I talked about, that for the most part, if you're in a pretty self inventory, healthy relationship, you're appreciating one another, you're kind of paying attention to stuff, and you're communicating, those traits usually stay pretty mild. They're nothing to, get too excited about. But if it's gone on a little bit, or somebody's really experiencing some stress in the relationship, it might be nice to go back to your agreements, because sometimes agreements need rewritten. Sometimes the agreements that were created in the beginning of the relationship aren't necessarily going to work 5 years down the road. And so holding each other to that may not work. The other time an agreement needs redone is if you tried one and it just ain't working. Like, you don't have to hold an agreement for 5 years. I mean, hell, you're going to know if that thing's working within a month. But if it's not working, give yourselves some freedom to go back and write a new agreement about something. And so what agreements might be are something like, uh, I don't like dirty dishes on the counter do not bother me. I assume I'm going to get to them and wash them. Drives my husband crazy. So he insists on rinsing them and putting them in the sink, right? So it's kind of like an unspoken agreement. I, in turn, like to load the dishwasher. Now, this might seem like silly stuff to you guys, but if there's not, like when you're living and you're trying to be compatible with one another, the little things that some people just pay attention, because it's usually the little things that are going to send you sideways when you're overwhelmed, or it'd be like, why'd you do that? Why'd you do the dishes? Right. And, that's how we end up talking about stuff that's really not the real thing we're needing to talk about. Yeah. Yeah. So these agreements are kind of important. That might be an agreement we have. Another agreement we have are no heavy conversations at bedtime. It is not the time to talk about the goal setting for the finances at bedtime. Why? Because a lot of times we're tired. We don't want to we don't want to fix the world at bedtime. Okay. So whatever bedtime is for you guys, uh, just be cognizant of that. If you're going to have a conversation with a friend, say you've got a friendship and it's something you guys need to talk about, something you need to do a relationship reset. Don't try calling that friend on the way to the commute to have on the commute during work to have the conversation. Like, just kind of what are you, that's just common sense. But in the relationship, what are your agreements with one another? So no heavy conversations late at night is another one for me. or us, I should say. So revisit your agreements. Are they still working? Are they not? And when you really work as a team and you're really looking to fulfill one another's lives, you'll find agreements that will work. And, I almost did the show today on influence. How influenced are you by the people in your life, ultimately your partner? Are you open-minded to their feedback? Or are you kind of putting up a wall? When you get into agreements, you have to stay open-minded a little bit, would be my suggestion, and open to feedback, because someone might think that the agreement's working and the other person doesn't think it does. And so here's the rule. If somebody says the agreement's not working, it's not working. You can't force it. You both have to come up with a way to find the happy middle ground. And both people need to be able to compromise and meet in the middle. So if there's a new agreement to be had, that could be all that needs to happen in order to reset the relationship and get back up into the hot temperatures, right? Okay. So relationship reset, those are some tips for you today. Take the temperature. Where are you at? Are you frigid? Are you super hot? What do you need to do to get back on track? Listen for the words in the relationship when something's a little bit frigid. What are the common phrases you both are using? And then ask one another, what do you mean by that? What are the definitions of the words that you're using? This is just a good way to check the relationship to find out if you're on the same page or you're on a completely different wavelength, trying to get your needs met, but your partner's like, I don't even look at it that way. You got to have those conversations. Once those conversations are done, you're able to come back, and here's the next one, to appreciate one another and appreciate each other for anything and everything they're doing. I suggest that you appreciate one another daily, to thank each other for everything that you do, or it'll go unnoticed, and then someone will feel taken advantage of over time, especially if you're busy life. But if you really looked at your partner today, now, even if you're mad at them right now while you're listening to this, but if you really looked at your partner, I'm sure there's at least 2 or 3 things you could go up and thank them for doing today. Just breathing and showing and choosing to be in a relationship with you might be one of them. Don't know. I mean, if you're still in the relationship, there must be something there, right? So appreciation is one. If the relationship's gone frigid for a while and you're trying to figure out, or it's just whatever, revisit your agreements. Find out if there's an agreement that you two have made that either is not being upheld together, or if it just needs remade or reset. Sometimes it's just like somebody will be, I just got tired and I couldn't stick to it. I'll get back on track, and you're done. Other times it'll be like, dude, I just can't do that. Like, that just is not working for me. I thought it would work for me, but it's not working for me. Can we go back to the drawing table and find out a new way? Revisit your agreements. So those are a couple ways to reset the relationship, to go from frigid to hot, to turn it around. And then I would probably say, once you get that temperature on hot, go celebrate. Make sure there's celebration being brought into your relationship. Make sure you're setting time aside to enjoy one another. Date nights are good. Playtime, play. Don't take this stuff so seriously. We're all here. We're all having a journey. It's a fantastic place to be. And yeah. So there you go. Thanks for being here tonight. I got a raised hand on my screen. It's probably been there this whole time, and I have no idea. So hopefully somebody can edit that. Have a good night. Thanks for being here. Reset that relationship. The relationship is worth it. You got in it for a reason, because you chose that person to have a good time with. They're still there to have a good time. Just get back on track. All right. Thank you. Have a good night. Bye. You have been listening to Know You're Crazy.
Crazy.
And my name is Susan Denee. We are identifying, understanding, and treating your crazy one episode at a time. Tune in to transformationtalkradio.com. To connect with me or Growth Spurt Your Life, please visit susandenee.com. That's Susan Denee, DENEE.com.